I just got done watching The Last Voyage of the Demeter. This is, of course, about Dracula's unholy presence as he dooms the crew of a merchant ship, the Demeter, as it sails from Carpatha to London. Now, this is taken from a chapter of the Bram Stoker's Dracula book. Never read the book, but now I'm actually very interested to read it, specifically now diving into like a bunch of lore of Dracula. And I never saw a trailer for this one. Never. But what I did get was thousands of friends asking me about this movie. There's been 5 movies that I feel like most human beings, or just in general, my close personal family and friends have asked me about. And they're all in like the general going audience kind of vibe. It was Barbie. It was Oppenheimer. We also had the likes of Guardians of the Galaxy in there. And now it was The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Many people have asked me about this movie. In fact, after I had posted that I was watching this at a press screening, I came out and saw on Instagram that I had 7 people asking me how the movie was. Is it good? And I'm someone who's never even seen the trailer. I just saw the poster and I was like, that looks cool. I don't want to see anything from that movie. I just want to watch the film. And the movie's good. It's good. I have issues with it, but walking out of it, I was like, that was a solid Dracula movie. That was a solid vampire film. That was just a solid monster movie. And I want more. I miss these type of films, and it also really much reminds you why Dracula is one of the scariest monsters that have ever been created in any folktales, cinema, whatever you want to say it is. Vampires and just in general Dracula are absolutely horrifying, and I really like how this movie brought that back. And specifically, I'm very excited to hear your guys' thoughts on this movie. Are you excited for this movie? Are you not? Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more movie content on a daily basis over here. And without further ado, what I love to start talking about with my movie reviews is the pros, and that's what we're going to start talking about first. So first off, let's get the performances out of the way. And Corey Hawkins, who very much is the leading man in here, I've loved him from straight Outta Compton. I loved his time in The Walking Dead. I've really loved any time this guy's appeared in things. In the Heights, that guy almost stole the show. In this movie, he is fantastic. It's great to see him doing this. He does this very Shakespearean type of performance that I just really dug. And he elevates every moment, every line, every single second. He makes it believable, and you absolutely want to cheer him on the entire way through. Along the likes of Liam Cunningham is also really good in here as well. Loved him from Game of Thrones. David Dastmalchian, which I always mispronounce, is fabulous in here. And no matter what film he comes into, you might recognize him by his face, but he easily like camouflages into that performance, no matter how big or small, and I was always very impressed with that. And last but not least, an actress of the name of Aisling Francisca. Might be mispronouncing that, I very much probably am. She plays Anna in here, and I really liked her in here. I actually just wish there was a little bit more of her. We'll talk about that more in the cons. But the big piece of this that I really do want to give credit to is the actor Javier Botet, who plays Dracula in here. And while Dracula doesn't really talk, nor do you really get to know a sensation, the way that Javier plays Dracula is a great performance. Look at something what Doug Jones does with a lot of the Del Toro films, whether it's when he's playing Abe Sapien or, of course, the fish guy from Shape of Water. And what Javier is able to do is bring to life a character that is, for the most part, what I can tell, full prosthetics and full makeup, and not just visual effects. Obviously, there's visual effects to Dracula, but it makes it more memorable, and it's going to hold up a hell of a bunch longer because it's so practical. There's certain shots in here that Andre Ordell really nails in here. And it's particularly one where you're looking out at the whole deck and it's just dark and you don't really notice what the character's looking at for a second, but then you all of a sudden see this silhouette as you continue to look at it for a long period of time. You see this silhouette. And that moment brought me back to nightmares of a kid. I remember when I was a kid, there would be times where I swear I would see a silhouette at the end of a hallway in our old house. And that is the thing of nightmares, which in a lot of times people say Dracula is the thing of nightmares. And I think for me, what Andre is able to do with that direction, the way that he was able to show off Dracula, as well as having Javier very much portray this, really works. Now, when it comes down to this movie, this is obviously a horror film. And many people go to horror films for scares. We're going to talk more about the scares on the con side. But when it comes down to the kills, the brutality, the blood, the gore, the guts, it is there. And it is fun. And it's awesome. And that is one of the things that I really dug about this movie. And actually, the thing that I can really say about the film is that this doesn't feel like a modern day horror film. It feels like something that maybe would have came out in the early 2000s, or maybe even around the times of Pirates of the Caribbean fame. And very much this film feels like a sailor's story, a sailor's horror story, which if you've ever looked in or read any of those, that is something cool. And the fact that they took a chapter from Bram Stoker's Dracula and put it in here, but framed it in that vein, only adds to the essence of some classic Stephen King novels, where the jump scares are not the biggest frame of it all. In fact, it really is the mythology, the mythos, and everything of that nature. And that's where I think this film really nails its best moments. The direction, the performances, and the way that they're able to showcase Dracula here. But the film is not perfect, like I mentioned. And a lot of films aren't perfect. There's some films that I love, and I would recommend this film as a one-time watch. You're going to the theaters, you want to see a cool movie, this is the movie I would recommend. But flat out starting out with my cons, all the characters are very paper thin. I actually wish they would have explored the characters a little bit more, per se. And that goes for Dracula. I love what Javier was able to do on a physicality level, but I think there was some essence missing from the script of developing Dracula a little bit more and actually making him a character than just a monster. I think what you learn about him, and some people won't want that. I will completely understand that. But I am fascinated with the character of Dracula and this new interpretation that we get of him. I wish we got to see a little bit more. Particularly when you start to learn that, like, this version of Dracula is very intelligent and can kind of talk. So I wanted a little bit more of that, and I wanted to see a little bit more to that. Alongside that, I think that actually would have added to a more psychological type of horror to the movie. The movie is very much straightforward, slasher, blood, guts, with some more slower, tenser moments to kind of bring that fisherman's tale to life. But I think a psychological nature, like that whole moment with the outline, the silhouette that I mentioned, that was creepy. And I wish we would have seen more of that. There's hints of it throughout the movie, but it's never fully there. And I think, again, building up the character of Dracula could have brought to that some more essence of making the sailors kind of just go a little bit more crazy. There are elements like that that I just wish we would have seen. And I actually look at that from an issue on the script writers. Now, the script's not terrible. It's just solid. But it is something that I have seen a lot before, and I think a lot of people will be very familiar with that. I just think I would have liked them to touch a little bit more on certain aspects of everything there. And that's kind of how I felt in this film. Not a bad watch, an entertaining one at that I think Andre does a great job at directing, and I think Javier as Dracula is terrifying. I love this version of Dracula. I love the look of it. I think it's so awesome. I love the practicality to it. It will be, some of the imagery will be burned inside my membrane, and the performances from like the likes of Corey Hawkins is phenomenal in here. I think that guy should be leading a lot more. I just wish the script was a little bit stronger. It's pretty weak and paper thin to the characters, and I think a psychological nature of horror really would have elevated this film to such a higher degree. But if you're going to the theaters this week and you want a cool horror film, I have to say, if you've already seen Talk to Me, I would probably recommend this one next, specifically if you like Dracula and vampires. So with all that said, I'm going to give The Last Voyage of the Demeter a B. Thank you so much again, guys, for watching this. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Tons of new movie reviews coming up on a daily basis. Love talking films and TV over here. We got Blue Beetle coming up next week. Can't wait to talk about that film. But of course, until next time, stay classy.